All right. Welcome everybody to today's CalTAP webinar on discharge upgrades. It is May 15th, 2024. I want to thank you, Citrus College, for allowing us to be here today to speak with your student veterans, and also thank you to the other veterans and family members that are on this event today for being here. Just some housekeeping. We're going to start off today, jump right into the topic. We have Louis Trong here from the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. He's going to be talking to you a little bit about the discharge upgrade process, what to expect when you are going through it, and whatnot. Once he's done, we're going to change it up a little bit from what you see here on the screen. Once he's done, we're going to go ahead and actually open up the floor to questions right then and there. So as he's speaking, go ahead and use that Q&A feature that you see either at the top or the bottom of your screen to ask any questions that you have for Louis. We have Cherie on the background who is going to be looking at those questions and filtering them, for Louis or for CalTAP. And we'll go ahead and take a stab at him and answering them right after he's done speaking. Once he's done speaking, we'll hear a little bit about what CalTAP's all about and how we work with veterans across the state. And then you'll hear a little bit about who your link is and how your links actually help out veterans across the state as well. And if there's any more questions at the end of the event, we will definitely get to those as well. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and actually, before I throw it to Louis Trong, one more thing. This is being recorded. So with this event being recorded, we are going to upload it to our website. So if you do want to use this as a resource for later on down the road, you can always go to our website or our YouTube page to find this video and download it for yourself or watch it on YouTube. We're also going to put the PDF copy of the slides into the chat later on. So if you want to use those and download those to your computers, you can have this information for resources as well. So. All right, so go ahead, Louis, when you're ready. Louis is from the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about discharge upgrades. So go ahead, Louis, when you're ready.
All right. Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to our discharge upgrade workshop. My name is Louis Trong, and I'm an attorney with the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. We provide free legal services for low-income and disabled veterans in LA County, including for discharge upgrades. So I'm going to provide a brief overview of discharge upgrades and how they work. This presentation is going to be very brief, so it may not cover everything that you're looking for, but I'm happy to take questions. All right, so next slide. So for today, I'll discuss where you apply for a discharge upgrade. That's going to depend on a number of factors. And two, I'll discuss what boards consider when assessing a discharge upgrade application. Next slide. So Congress has authorized the Department of Defense to create military review boards to consider discharge upgrade requests. Each service branch has two. We'll go to the next slide. The first type of review board is known as a discharge review board, or a DRB. It consists of 5 officers from the branch of service involved. The second type of board is known as a Board for Correction of Military Records, or BCMR. The board consists of 5 civilian employees who have been appointed by the Secretary of Defense. So while both types of boards have authority to consider discharge upgrades, the BCMRs can hear appeals from previous DRB decisions, as well as make pretty broad changes to your military record. And before, I mentioned that every branch of service has 2 review boards. The exception is the Marine Corps. Discharge upgrades and military record corrections fall under the jurisdiction of the naval boards. Next slide. All right. So statute of limitations refer to the time limits in which you can apply to a board, and this is the primary factor when figuring where to apply. DRBs have a hard deadline of 15 years from the date of discharge. There are no exceptions to this time limit. So if you were discharged within the past 15 years, and this is your first discharge upgrade application, you would apply here. To apply to a DRB, you would submit a DD Form 293, and that form will provide instructions on where to submit the application. BCMRs have more flexible time limits. So the time limit refers to 3 years from the date of discovery of error or injustice. However, the BCMRs will waive time limits if it is in the interest of justice. Effectively, what that means is that they almost never reject an application for failure to file within the 3-year period. So if you have a strong case, they won't deny the application on these grounds. To apply here, you would need to submit a DD Form 149, and that form will tell you where to submit the application. There is an exception for discharge upgrade applications where a veteran raises the issue of mental health. So for example, if you're saying that you had PTSD at the time you committed the misconduct, and that explains why you did what you did, the Department of Defense has directed the BCMRs to waive time limits. You are still, however, subject to the 15-year statute of limitations for DRBs. Next slide. So review boards can upgrade on the basis of 3 factors: impropriety, inequity, and clemency. I'll discuss the first 2 here. Impropriety is pretty rare. It deals with an error of fact or law, procedure, or discretion. So the reason why this is rare is because the error that led to your discharge has to be considered pretty severe to warrant an upgrade on these grounds. Ultimately, if the underlying facts related to the misconduct are true or can't be disproved, the review boards will say nothing improper happened regarding the separation, even if they grant a discharge upgrade on other grounds. The one big exception is if there was a change in policy that has been enacted and that the policy now clearly states that the change is retroactive. So the big example here would be don't ask, don't tell, which was official policy amongst the military from 1993 to, I believe, 2011. Veterans who were discharged as a result of don't ask, don't tell would pursue a discharge upgrade on the basis of impropriety. So this is the factor that boards will generally consider for discharge upgrade applications. So they're thinking in terms of whether ultimately the discharge status was unfair or overly harsh compared to what the veteran did. Not just in terms of their misconduct or over the entire duration of their military service. I'll discuss the second factor, that the current discharge policies are materially different than those that led to the applicant's discharge. So the example here is a veteran who commits misconduct due to an untreated or undiagnosed PTSD. In today's military, if a veteran is in the administrative separation process and mental health is raised as an issue, what the military is supposed to do is assess the service member for mental health conditions, including PTSD, and determine whether that contributed to the misconduct. This is a fairly recent policy change and certainly not available for service members who, for example, served during the Vietnam War. And why is that the case? Because PTSD was actually not considered an official clinically diagnosable condition until about 1980. We'll talk about this specifically a little later. You can go to the next slide. So the third factor is clemency, and this has taken more importance in recent years. So historically, clemency was only considered in discharge upgrade applications when a veteran defined in the federal statute or regulations. So it's when a veteran was separated with a bad conduct discharge or dishonorable discharge. It wasn't well defined in the statutes or the regulations, but effectively what it meant was that the boards would consider post-service conduct in their determination. So in 2018, the Department of Defense issued a memo that clarified what clemency meant for discharge upgrade applications. And effectively what it means now is that it allows the boards to consider clemency for veterans with OTH and general discharge statuses. It's always been really difficult to obtain an honorable discharge under this process, and clemency now provides a more possible pathway for which a veteran can do so. So we've used these grounds to get a vet upgraded from OTH to honorable in the past. So the factors the boards will consider for clemency is pretty comprehensive. They'll consider post-conviction conduct, and I believe the Air Force boards will require you to submit an FBI background check if you're raising clemency in your application. They'll provide the instructions on how to do so. They'll also consider the length of time since discharge. any sort of rehabilitation efforts, job history, community service. To really take advantage of this, we also recommend that veterans get as many letters of support or recommendation as they can. Next slide. The reason for what I discussed just now is that it's very difficult to get a discharge upgrade. These are historically the success rates based on the various review boards. In our experience, the naval boards have been the most difficult, followed by the Army boards. Air Force is generally easier, not only when you account for the success rates, but also consider that the percentage of Air Force veterans with bad paper discharges is pretty low. It's about 2%. If you compare that with the Marines, that rate is about 12% since 2002. So the Government Accountability Office, or the GAO, they performed a study over 40 years ago, although it's still relevant today. So they just studied discharge practices from each military branch, and they made some interesting conclusions. They found that the disparities in discharge statuses given to service members were not really attributable to differences in character amongst individuals serving in each branch. They found that more or less the patterns of performance and misconduct were consistent amongst each branch, but that the pattern, but that the Air Force was 13 times more likely to provide a more favorable discharge status than the Marine Corps. So the GAO concluded that the disparities in discharges given were more about differences in leadership and management styles that were common in each branch. The fact is, your COs have a lot of discretion about what discharge status you get. And from talking to my fellow veteran advocates over the years, they have found like a correlation between veterans with OTH discharges and general issues with authority figures as a personality trait. So often the difference between a bad paper discharge or an honorable or general discharge may ultimately depend on whether the COs like you or not. Next slide. And this goes to one of the big reasons why it's so difficult to get a discharge upgrade. It's known as the presumption of regularity. So what this means is that the boards assume that the veteran's discharge was properly administered. So it's up to the veteran to provide, the standard is substantial, credible evidence that the discharge was improper or inequitable. And that leads to the second reason behind the low success rates. So veterans often fail to fully develop their cases. Denied claims often include only the application, a personal statement, and character references. What you need to know is that boards are obligated to review a veteran's military record, but such records tend to contain information to support the original discharge decision, and boards will often cherry pick from the records to support the discharge. And not just that, the boards will consider your entire record to figure out what your discharge status should be, even if there is a mitigating factor in your record. This is especially the case if you're requesting to get upgraded to an honorable status. So if you have like canceling reports in your record for minor issues, even though that may not have led to your discharge, the boards may consider it in their determinations. So what you need to do to develop your discharge upgrade case is make sure you get a copy of your own records in order to emphasize the positive features of your record, but also to understand your misconduct record and provide evidence that can explain or mitigate the misconduct, particularly if you can raise mental health as an issue. Next slide. Right. So over 10 years ago, there was a class action lawsuit against the Department of Defense, basically because the review boards weren't taking into account veterans' issues of misconduct that could have been the result of mental health issues like PTSD that may have went untreated or undiagnosed in service. As I discussed previously, PTSD was not an official diagnosis under the DSM until 1980. So beginning in 2014, the Department of Defense started issuing guidance to the review boards when considering discharge upgrade cases where mental health is raised. Next slide. So boards are now required to provide liberal consideration to these types of cases. So what that means is that they have to consider whether the veteran had a mental health condition in service, that whether the behavior that led to the discharge is consistent with an individual with that mental health condition, and whether that condition excuses or mitigates the discharge. So what we've seen since 2014 is that success rates for these types of cases are slightly higher, but it's still very difficult to obtain an honorable discharge, even with strong evidence of a mental health condition contributing to a discharge. It is still very difficult to get your discharge status upgraded, and a lot of veteran advocates don't take a lot of these cases. Instead, have the veterans go through the VA route. That's what's called the character of discharge determination to gain eligibility for VA benefits. And in fact, the VA issue new rules that hopefully will make that process a lot easier for veterans. So we'll see how that goes in the next couple of years. Yeah, and so we go to the next slide. Yeah, and I believe that's it. And so if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll try my best to answer them.
Right. Yeah. We're going to go ahead and bring in Cherie right now. Cherie has been working the back end, throwing resources into the chat if needed, that you can download. But I'm going to bring her in and see if there's any questions that came through. It doesn't look like there are any questions, but I do want to say before we do start this process that all questions that are going to come through, if you do have questions, we do hope that you keep them as general as possible. We cannot get into personal questions. Lewis is not your legal advisor, so he can't answer any questions that are personal or that might help you out. If you do have those questions, though, we will have his contact information on one of the last slides, so that you can reach out to him or his organization if you need the help. So Cherie, I'll go ahead and pass it on back to you to see if there's anything that maybe came through that I didn't see.
At this time, no, there are no questions, unfortunately, that have come through. I noticed that some people are raising hands. If you would please just go ahead and drop your question in the question and answer tab. You can hover your cursor at the bottom of your screen and click on Q&A. You can definitely do that. We've limited the ability of turning on your camera and also microphones to maximize our bandwidth for the presentation. So I highly encourage, if you do have a question, to please drop that in the chat or the Q&A or the area there. It looks like we have one question that just came in. If it has been greater, Lewis, just to let you know, so if it has been greater than 15 years since end of service, and there was an MST that would reasonably linked for change in character, what options are there to upgrade from BCD SPCM?
So if it's been more than 15 years, you're basically the only avenue pretty much is to go through the BCMR. So that's you. So you're applying with the form DD 149. So if you're appealing with a BCD discharge status, they tend to assume that there has been a court-martial conviction. So oftentimes it is pretty difficult, but if you can provide substantial evidence that MST occurred and that you have a mental health diagnosis in service, that's usually really good evidence. But I would definitely suggest that you also request a discharge upgrade on grounds of clemency. Basically, you just need to provide a really comprehensive application. So definitely provide strong examples of post-service conduct.
Awesome, thank you.
So like community service.
The next question that came in is, can you make other than honorable to honorable?
Yes, it is very difficult. We've seen over the last few years the rate from OTH to general is substantially higher than general to honorable or OTH to honorable. But we have found that using clemency as an argument has been really successful in getting veterans to honorable.
Thank you, Lewis. Right now, there aren't any additional questions. I know that it takes some time as the presentation continues on. Some people might ask some questions, but I do encourage folks to continue asking them as we move through. I know Michael's got a few more slides to go through, but Oh, and look, as I've been encouraging, some questions just came in. So thanks to folks going ahead and typing them in. It says, um, can dishonorable be upgraded to only other than?
Yes, I have seen that. I have seen that in practice. But we typically, so I haven't seen it that often enough, just because it's not our priority. Is to make sure we do want to try to see if we can get you to general or honorable, but it's definitely possible to get you to an OTH. The only issue is an OTH does not really get you a lot of eligibility for VA benefits in that context, particularly if you're still going through the character of discharge determination.
Thank you. So the next question is, I was administratively discharged for failing a drug test over 15 years ago. I am now in college. Is there any way of qualifying for any funds for college?
So I'd say, so assume you don't go through the discharge upgrade process and try to go through the VA benefits process. If you can get a mental health issue service connected, or actually just get a VA benefits, if you can get a condition found to be service connected and get benefits for that, the VA will conduct the character of discharge determination. And basically what that does is the VA will determine if you're honorable or dishonorable for VA benefits purposes. If you are found honorable for VA benefits purposes and you do have a service connection, rating of at least 20%, you are automatically eligible for VRNE benefits, which I, to the life of me, just cannot remember what it stands for, but previously it used to be known as voc rehab. So you would be, if you basically, the VA would work with you and to form an education plan in light of your service connected conditions, and we'll pay for your education that way. And it will cover tuition and fees and books and provide a stipend, not as big as what you'd see under the 9/11 GI Bill, but it's a pretty generous benefit.
Yeah, that's the Veterans Readiness and Employment Program, and it basically gives you it extends your education benefits, so your GI Bill benefits. It's a good program. It's an employment program, but if you need education because you need to find a better job that is suitable for your disability, it's definitely there.
And then if you are going through the discharge upgrade process, if you can tie your drug use to a mental health condition that you're currently diagnosed for, and there's evidence that it existed in service, if you can get upgraded to honorable, the way under federal statute, the time limit, if you have GI Bill benefits, like if you accrued that, it's required. A discharge upgrade would essentially reset the 15-year time limit to use your GI Bill benefits.
Thank you. And just to follow up, it says go to the VA office at the college. I would kind of answer that a little bit and say you do have the ability, if you are at Citrus College at the Veterans Resource Center, there is a VRNE counselor, VSOC there. So I would recommend connecting there. But if you are tuning in from a different college, thank you for joining us. But yes, most definitely visit your Veterans Resource Center. There could be someone there that could assist you with that and navigating the process of obtaining your education benefits, or what avenue is the best avenue to follow. Another question for you, Lewis, is does Legal Aid Foundation work with veterans currently living abroad?
I don't think so, because if you go through the intake, it's they'll ask for your current address, and they'll at that point they'll probably tell you they can't assist you if you're out of the country.
Thank you. Is there any way an entry-level separation can be upgraded? If so, how far?
I would say yes, depending on a number of circumstances in terms of like what led to the discharge. If you have, it's hard to say. If you have a certain amount of time served. And there are factors that led to your discharge outside of things that would lead to an uncharacterized discharge. You could change your discharge status. I have seen that, particularly for individuals who may have had like a military sexual trauma in service, and that contributed to their discharge. If you have some sort of medical condition that contributed to your separation, that's often good grounds to change your discharge status.
Thank you, Louis. And another question is, can you ask for VA benefits if you are dishonorably discharged?
At the moment, no, because I believe based on that discharge status, you would be disqualified from, you'd be not eligible for VA benefits. You would have to go through the discharge upgrade process.
Thank you. Looks like at this time we answered all the questions for now. There is one that I would like to just send to you directly, Louis. But other than that, we have the question and answer will remain open. But at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Michael to continue on with our presentation. Again, thank you, Louis, for answering those. And for all those still tuned in, if you have a question that might come up, there's another opportunity to answer some questions towards the end. We will do so and get through as many as we can. But Michael, back to you.
Right. Thank you, Sheree. And again, thank you, Louis, and for your organization for being here today to help us out with this topic. I'm going to go ahead now and kind of switch gears, tell you a little bit about what we do. So CalTAP, I'm part of a program that is under the California Department of Veteran Affairs. We are the CalTAP, the California Transition Assistance Program. So this is pretty much what the hierarchy is of state work, government work, county work, and also service providers that fall underneath it. You do have your federal department, the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, that provides federal programs for veterans and their families across the country. And then you have the State Department, which is what we are. We are the State California Department of Veteran Affairs. And we provide programs and services to California veterans, wanting to keep California veterans here in California, keep them comfortable throughout every part of their transition into civilian life. Underneath us, you have your county offices. Your county veteran service offices are, there's one office in every county in California. These are the offices that you go to get your services, all benefits that you want to get started. All the paperwork will be here in this office. Those veteran service representatives are going to be offering free assistance to you and your family to get these programs and benefits started. And then the other service providers, like the Disabled American Veterans and Source to Plowshares, these organizations are out there, region specific. And I'll talk to you a little bit about our local interagency network coordinators and how they help veterans and their family members get connected to those service providers, as well as the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs and CalVet. We'll talk about that in a bit. But again, this is just a quick little snapshot of some of those programs that fall underneath the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs and the California Department of Veteran Affairs. The U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs is broken up, or actually you could consider it like an umbrella. And the Veterans Health Administration, the Veterans Benefits Administration, and the National Cemeteries Administration fall underneath that umbrella. Each one of those administrations provides different programs and services to the veterans across the country, veterans and their family members across the country. CalVet on the right-hand side is the State Department, and under that State Department, they have their different divisions that focus on our minority veterans, our women veterans. We have a veteran service division, which is what I'm part of. We even have a CalVet home loans division that's different than the federal home loans division, which I'll touch on just for a quick second in a couple of slides later. But this is just a quick snapshot of some of those programs that are offered through CalVet. If you have any questions about any of these programs, feel free to take a picture of this slide, reach out to me after the event's over. I'll have my contact information along with Sheree and Louis's contact information up on one of the last slides. All right, so what is CalTAP? So CalTAP is a transition assistance program, and we are designed to inform and connect veterans of all eras to their earned state and federal benefits, as well as provide continuous assistance and support as their needs change over time. And so, what we do is we want to be there for every step of the way that the veteran and their family members are at when it comes to transitioning from the military life. And so what we've done is we've developed different pathways that help veterans and their family members navigate those services and benefits. Those pathways are, we have an education pathway, we have an employment pathway, an entrepreneurship pathway. There's a core curriculum pathway that is filled with information about benefits and services that don't fit into those topics that I just mentioned. And then we have a service provider pathway. So if you have anybody within your community or, a family member or somebody that you work with that does want to work more with veterans, they can always go to our website and find our service provider curriculum. And just what they'll do is just give them information about, military culture and what to expect when working with this specific population. This is the life cycle map that we pretty much follow. Joining, serving, and separating, we don't really touch on much when it comes to the programs and what we offer, because we are a transition assistance program. But we do want to be there during those periods. And so we are developing new ways that we can reach, the veterans, the service members while they're in serving, and even the civilians before they join. But yeah, we want to be there every step away from, building your family, to retiring, to preparing for end-of-life care. This right here is a veterans resource book. So you should have received, or there is a copy, a PDF copy that is in the chat that you can download for yourself. I believe in your confirmation email, you may have also received a link to the PDF copy as well. You can go to your county veteran service office or your veterans resource center and find a hard copy of this book too. I like to say this book is like gold for veterans. So everything that we discuss when it comes to benefits and services can be found in this book. It's also going to talk to you about eligibility requirements. It will talk to you about who do you need to speak to get the benefits started, and what forms you need to submit. There's also a section that's in there that helps you find your closest county veteran service office. You can also go to our website, calvet.ca.gov. There in the middle of the screen, in the second oval, is the Find Local CVSO. So if you're not looking in your Veterans Resource Book, you go to our website and use that link to find the closest county veteran service office. You can also click on the CalTAP banner, and that's going to take you to the curriculum that I mentioned earlier. So that education pathway, our entrepreneurship pathway, employment pathway, core curriculum pathway, that all can be found right there on that by clicking on that CalTAP banner. And then if you, for some reason, didn't get a chance to download the book through the chat, or you didn't get it in that confirmation email, or if you just want to, tell somebody else that you know how to get the book, you can always go to our website. Down at the very bottom of the page is the publication section. That first link is going to be the PDF copy of that book. And again, I can't stress how important this book is. Everything that you need to know about the benefits that are available to you through the state of California and also through the federal VA can be found in this book. We're actually preparing to release a new edition as well. So that's going to have even more information and be a little bit more interactive. So be on the lookout for that book too. Hopefully by the end of this year. All right. So what are those California benefits? Quick little snapshot of what California offers its veteran population. One of the main benefits that we get questions about, and the only education benefit that California offers its veterans, is the college tuition fee waiver for dependents. So now, a veteran can come to California and not have to worry about transferring their education benefits to their dependents. They can actually use their own education benefits for themselves and send their dependents to school. So any state-funded school, any UC, CSU, or California Community College. They also made it easier to identify yourself as a veteran. So you can actually get the word veteran printed on your driver's license now. So that just makes it so that you don't have to carry around a DD Form 214 in your back pocket anymore. There's also DMV programs, motor vehicle registration fee waiver for 100% disabled veterans. There's a fishing and hunting license out there that's offered at a reduced cost, and a state park pass that's offered at no cost. And we also have property tax exemptions for veterans. That does differ across the state. So if you do have questions about, property tax exemptions, feel free to reach out to myself or Sheree, and we can direct you to who you need to speak to get answers to those questions. And again, like I mentioned earlier, Calvet is an umbrella. The right-hand side of the screen, the right-hand bullet points are going to be the different divisions that fall underneath the umbrella of Calvet. We have a home loans division, like I mentioned earlier. It's different than the federal VA home loans division, and it just makes it easier for veterans to get into homes here in California. And then we have our women and minority veterans divisions that offer advocacy, outreach, and support. And we have our veteran homes for our elderly veterans. There's 8 different homes across the state, and 3 different state cemeteries that you can utilize if needed, that are different than the federal VA cemeteries. So that's just a quick little snapshot of what's available through the state of California. Again, if you have any questions about these benefits, please feel free to reach out. We could definitely get some answer some questions, or direct you to somebody who can answer the questions. If you want to keep in touch with what CalTAP's all about, or want to know more about the webinars or the live events we're going to be attending, you can always provide your non-DoD email address to that CalTAP inbox, caltap@calvet.ca.gov. It is checked daily. And we get your email address, we'll put you on a mailing list that's going to send you out a weekly email that just lets you know about the different webinars and service providers that we're working with for that week. You can also go to to the website and register under MyCalvet, which is just going to tailor the information of the website more to what you're interested in. And then check out our social media pages. We have a Facebook and an Instagram. Excuse me, and we have a YouTube page. So as I mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded. We've recorded all of our webinars since we've started doing them. So back when COVID happened, we had to stop traveling. Everything that we did, we had to start going through Zoom. And from that moment on, we've been recording and posting them. So you could go all the way back to 2020 to find some of this information and download those resources if you need them. And then also fill out today's webinar survey. So the survey is something that helps us make this program better for you guys. It lets us know what we did well today, what we could work on in the future. And it also lets us know what you'd want to know more about in future presentations as well. So this is my contact information. I know that was a quick little overview of what CalTAP's all about and what is available through California. But please feel free to reach out anytime. I can definitely direct you to somebody who can help you if I can. Now, I'm going to go ahead and cover the link information. Our local interagency network coordinator, Anthony Rodriguez, is actually the Los Angeles link. He's not available today. He had actually a prior engagement, so I'm going to just cover his information real quick. But he is the one that, if you are living in the Los Angeles region, that you'd want to reach out to for, the services that I'm about to talk about right now. So our local interagency network coordinators, there are 8 individuals across the state that focus on 8 different regions, all different unique regions. The veterans have unique needs, and they are aware of the different services and outside resources that can help those veterans. So take a snapshot of this screen. If you don't plan on staying in Los Angeles, if you're tuning in from somewhere else other than Los Angeles, find who your link is, write down that email address, and feel free to reach out to them. So what they do is they provide outreach to service members, veterans, and their family members. They work directly with our county veteran service offices and with our, the VA and Calvet, the federal VA and Calvet. So they have connections and can direct you to resources almost instantly. They also assist with local emergencies and provide leadership and advocacy to local communities. So you'll see them at college campuses often. They also hang out with the county veteran service offices and work with other organizations that work with veterans in their region. When I say assist with local emergencies, you can kind of think of a couple of years ago when we had the Paradise fires up north in California. Our Northern Valley League, Cole Wagner, was the one who was out there every single day working with the veterans in that area, finding them housing, getting them getting their houses fixed if they were, a Calvet home loan and they had the Calvet insurance. So these people are boots on the ground. They are connected with resources that can help you out and are prepared to help you if you need it. They connect you with benefits through employment and training. So they have connections through EDD and the America's Job Center in California. And I mentioned earlier, they also have connections through the VA and the state Calvet. So Anthony Rodriguez is the Los Angeles link. This is his contact information. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to him. The links take cold calls. So, if it's within business hours, you definitely could reach out to them without, giving them a heads up, and they'll answer the phone. Even if it's an emergency and it's not within business hours, they will answer the phone. These 8 people are dedicated to the veterans in their area and can help out whenever. Ooh, all right, so that was a long little winded overview of what Calvet has to offer our veterans. Again, you guys are here for our discharge upgrade content, but I do want to thank you for hanging around and listening to what I had to say and what we have to offer. I'm going to keep this slide up real quick if you want to take a picture of it. So you have these phone numbers and these email addresses. These are, Cherie, Lewis, and Anthony and myself are prepared to help you out if needed. So I'm going to go ahead now and bring back in Cherie just to see one more time if there's any questions that came through. If not, then we will prepare to close it down.
Looks like we have one question that came in. It says, my dad is a Vietnam vet. He never used his GI Bill. Could I use that for my tuition at CSUN, Cal State, Northridge as a dependent?
You wouldn't be able to use it. You wouldn't be able to use his GI Bill, but as a dependent, you can use the CalVet fee waiver for that state funded school. So any state funded school you could use, as long as your father if he was a Vietnam vet and maybe he had a disability rating, hopefully he had a disability rating. If not, you can speak with the County Veteran Service Office and they could go about, seeing if that's possible or not. But if that's the case, then yeah, you do have that fee waiver. If there's no disability rating, unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to use his GI Bill unless he had transferred them to you before he separated from service.
At this time, there are no more questions that came in. I did answer a few questions to follow up with Lewis offline. Now that the question and answer or this contact sheet is up, I would encourage those folks to take a picture so you can follow up offline, or you can give a call to the 800 number provided for Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. And someone definitely there can assist you with any kind of advice or advocacy. But yeah, no further questions at this time. Lewis, again, thank you for joining us. And then also Citrus College for partnering with us for this great presentation today.
All right, sweet. All right, well then I'll go ahead and wind it down. Again, this event survey, I mentioned this earlier in the webinar. This survey is just something that's going to help us out with this program. We're actually doing a hard focus on the data recently, and we're just trying to get more information about how we're doing. So please take the time to fill it out. I believe it's like an 8-question survey, maybe a couple more questions than that. But it's really simple, just letting us know what went well today, and then also what we need to work on in the future, and also what kind of information you want to know more about. We'll get that to you. We also have a couple more webinars coming up this month, so check them out. You can scan that QR code. That's going to take you straight to our Constant Contact page where you can register for any one of these webinars. I do believe we have a few set up for June as well. We'll talk more about those in the next webinar, but yeah, this is something coming up that you could definitely register for and be a part of. And with that, I want to thank Citrus College again for having CalTAP here and letting us speak to your student veterans. And I also want to thank those of you that tuned in from across the state for being here. A special thanks to Louis Strong and the Los Angeles. Oh my God, why can't I think of your organization's name right now? I am so sorry, Louis. The Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. There you go. Thank you for being here and providing us with your knowledge on the discharge upgrade and complicated process that it is. But definitely worth it if you go through it. You can make it work. So that being said, we are done. See you guys at the next one. Thank you.